Well, welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Thursday, July the 15th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581 and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. I'll give Michael just a moment to get plugged in here. And
I am plugged.
All right.
So welcome, everybody. Honored and delighted here to be part of this conversation. And I certainly am blessed to be able to get to do this as often as we do and spreading this understanding of these amazing first century Aramaic tools on a broader and broader scale across the globe. So delighted to hear. And Jeannie tells us we've got a hand up already, so let's say hello to our caller. Let's start there. Miss Jeannie?
Hi, this is Laura. How are you?
Welcome. I'm well. How are you, young lady?
I'm doing okay. It was good to hear Susan and Dr. Tim.
Yes.
But
and what's on your mind? How can we support you today?
Well, I need to do a worksheet. I know I need to do a worksheet, but I'm stuck. And I'm like having fear about doing the worksheet, which is stupid, but I know I need to do it because if I do the worksheet, then I can get done what I need to get done. And yeah.
Go. So listening to your words, the first thing I'd invite you to do is to let go of the idea that there's anything stupid about you.
Okay.
Does that involve what the worksheet's about?
Well, what I'm stuck with is that I had a bad review from my principal.
Right.
And I need to write a rebuttal. But I don't want to
probably a place for some
that
Go ahead.
review because it makes me feel so horrible because there might be a small part of truth to it, and I don't like that part of myself. But then there's also there are some blatant lies.
Okay. Are you familiar? How much of the work have you done? Are worksheets a regular part of your life?
No, they're not a regular part of my life, but I have been aware of them for over 8 years. They need to become a regular part of my life. But
okay. Well, we'll be here to support you when and if that's appropriate. And it's a process, and we can want to jump in on something all we want, but until we're the energy field, until we're ready for it, it's not going to happen. Well, the first place I go with it, besides that idea of, using the verbiage, the language of stupid for yourself, which might be a totally separate worksheet, is if you remember the definition we use of the word denial, and that is, denial is the act of thinking or speaking as though something outside of us is the cause of what's happening inside of us. And I hear you say, I don't want to read that because it makes me feel. Now, my offering would be that's a very clear case of denial, thinking that what this person says about you could possibly make anything happen in you that would cause feelings that weren't already there.
Yeah.
So if you notice that what she writes, and if you tell yourself the truth, what she writes resonates some feelings about yourself that you really don't want to look at and deal with, the first order of business would be to remove that which you don't want to look at or deal with so that you can have a clearer mind to deal with whatever's going on. So that would be the first worksheet I would do, or maybe the second one. The first one might be on calling yourself stupid, labeling yourself that. Just, automatic comes out of my mouth like it's, fact, and it's a lie that your mind tells you.
It must have, because I don't even remember saying the word stupid when I was talking to you just now.
Yep. Well, that's what unconscious speech is. We're unconscious of it.
Oh.
I mean, 80% of the time when I pull something like that out with somebody and say, well, why would you call yourself that? She's like, well, I didn't. Well, you can go back and listen to that's one of the, people will say, well, Michael, how did you know that about me? I just listened to your language. If we train ourselves to listen to our language, our own words, we'll learn tons about ourselves that we otherwise, and it's, oftentimes a family system or a cultural habit, or maybe just a personal habit to hide those things from ourselves. But when we notice that they're there, then we've got a leg up because we can start to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So what's happening with your breath right now? What was that feeling that just flitted by?
Oh, I guess I'm
tired,
holding my breath, and I know I'm not supposed to do that.
Well, there's no supposed to or not supposed to in this work. Yeah, there's no supposed to or not supposed to. It's just notice that if you're holding your breath, that's the way you hide things from yourself. And when you breathe, you tend to get in touch with those things. And it's only when you get in touch with them that you can let them go. So what are the feelings that what the reviewer wrote that came up for you? I mean, there were feelings towards self.
That I'm not competent, that I'm not a good leader.
Sounds like maybe there's a lot of emotion behind that.
That I don't interact well or have good interpersonal skills. Don't interact well with other people.
Well, I'll offer that I'm certainly in great acceptance of the way you're interacting right now and your willingness, to stop and listen and question yourself. I think that's pretty powerful. But let me just ask a question. Did you ever have a power person? Have you been in on any of the discussions we've had about power person dynamic? The radio show there?
I have, but it's been a really long time. Like, I'm aware of the phrase, but I can't right now remember what.
Right. Okay. Let's just review it briefly and see if it fits here. And that is that a power person is someone who had more power over your life at some point than you did. They were not functioning as love. It's a second factor that comes in. And the third factor is that you perceived it as survival. When that occurs, when those three things happen simultaneously, what we tend to do is we tend to open our energy systems. And it's kind of like it puts us in receptive mode. And every energy that's going on in the environment just gets drawn in like a sponge, just sucks in all of that energy. And it becomes part of the foundational picture we have about ourselves. So if you look at the messages that your reviewer wrote, did you ever get any of those messages from a power person? It's usually a parent, though not always. It might be a spouse, and it can happen at any age. Again, it's usually when people are younger, but I've seen people at 60 and 70 have a power person dynamic installed in their minds through those three things happening. If you go back to your early years, did you ever get messages like, I'm not competent, I'm not good enough, I'm broken?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
From my dad, and then my alcoholic first husband, and potential alcoholic second husband, and no, the second husband, I've interpreted all of his messages that way. I don't know that he necessarily, but and then another principal. or
so it sounds like
uh,
so it sounds like these messages were received pretty early, and that there have been people coming in knocking on your door ever since to remind you that that's inside of you, and maybe it's time to forgive that stuff. Be perhaps a different way of interpreting what's going on with this principle, what went on with the other principle. You know, if I hold within my mind a conclusion about myself that, you know, to say I deserve to be put down, then literally that thought in me sets up a literal, actual high energy wave that communicates, hey, everybody, when you come toward me, you're supposed to put me down. And most people are so unconscious that they just respond to that. I mean, they may come in fully ready to be committed, loving. You know, have you ever had that happen? You're in a space where you're fully committed to being loving and caring with someone, and all of a sudden you find yourself functioning like a mad banshee? You ever had that happen?
Yeah.
What happened? Oftentimes what occurred is their high energy wave that demanded negativity from me so resonated and tapped into my negativity that even though I was committed to being caring and loving and nurturing and supportive, I went into that mad banshee part of my mind and puked it out on them. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because we need the feedback tell us what we're doing to ourselves. And when person after person after person after person shows up, you know, you've probably heard one of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines is, if you've been through it 87 different times with 42 different people, and you're the only one that was every time, sooner or later you got to start to recognize that you're involved. And what you want to do is uncover that part of your mind in your life. So perhaps making a shift in the way you perceive things as this principal or whoever it is attacking me, perhaps put into, so here's another person showing up in my life that's showing me the way I think and feel about myself from my early life. And I'm ready to own that and forgive it. That's where your worksheet is, to forgive that, to remove that. And when you literally remove that, you will literally resonate or set up different messages. And the people around you will respond differently, because most people are simply responding unconsciously to what you're sending out. I mean, I'm talking about all of us now.
Yeah.
And if I keep getting the same message over and over and over again, that's when I need to start to contemplate, how am I delivering that message that I keep getting this feedback, and am I willing to delve into? And usually it's a pretty painful part of the mind to delve into. And so it's going to involve me dropping into perhaps some of the deepest original pained experiences that I've had, allowing myself to come back into full recall with them and starting to process through them. And processing in this work we define as the ability to hold love conscious, active, and present when something less than love comes out.
So while you were talking...
Good breath. Go for it.
I was breathing and thinking about my dad and childhood, and one of the things with the interacting with people that's come up recently, well, not recently, but a couple of times throughout my life, which has been a recent trigger and not necessarily associated with this particular principle, but that I talk too much. And when I was breathing and thinking about my dad, I remembered not just my dad, but my mom, both of them I used to talk for my brother. Because he was little and he didn't really, he was almost 2 years younger than me. He didn't really talk. Because he was young, he was 2 and I was 4 and I could talk. And how they would yell at me or snap at me when we would meet somebody new. And I'd say, oh, well, his name's Jerry, and he's, this age or whatever. And it wasn't just when I was 4. It was, I don't know when I finally stopped talking for him. But I learned, I guess, the hard way, ample times of being told, stop talking for your brother. Let your brother talk. Quit being so pushy. And they probably didn't say pushy when I was little, but...
Mm-hmm. That was
wow,
a basic message you got.
Never thought about that and why it makes me feel like such a bad person when I talk too much.
It makes me, it brings up my thought disorders about what's wrong with me.
Right.
See, the beauty of understanding how language works with the mind. When I say it makes me, there's some interesting Harvard research. It says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells fire, the maximum amount of data that can come into conscious awareness out of those 10,000 units of electrical activity in the mind is 9 bits, just a little tiny, tiny fragment. And what controls the fragments I get to see of everything that's in there is my language. And so when I say to my mind, it makes me really sad or whatever, I'm saying to my mind, I want you to develop and show me a picture world where I get to see how they're doing this to me. I will block all awareness of how I'm doing it to myself, and I will literally, my mind will generate a perceptual construct that shows me they're doing it to me. And they make just this little slight shift of language. Here I am buying somebody putting me down again. What's the part of me that buys that? I just gave my mind permission to bring into that 9-bit awareness. This is how this happened. This is this is what's going on inside of me. And when I breathe into that and I bring love present, that stuff dissolves. In essence, that's forgiveness. So my language is key in instructing my mind how to structure the way I see the world. And then the goals that I hold take things to the next level and drive the mind or select which data my mind's going to use. So each time I'm in that state where I say, I feel put down, and I can own that I feel put down, then I can start to process the content of my mind where all those painful times where I experienced being put down, whether it was real or not, doesn't matter. I experienced it. All of that I can start to access and let loose of. And when I let loose of it, I stop sending out energetic messages that say, everybody has to come to me and put me down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and it doesn't matter which arena. If it's this principle operates in every arena. If it's a poverty issue, if I hold, no matter what happens, I always end up in poverty, then I'm always going to draw myself to circumstances that will complete the reason why I'm in poverty. If I'm in, terrible relationships, I keep sending out that message. When I start shifting the messages, then people come that want to be in wonderful relationships. People come that want to support me and nurture me. People come that want to affirm who I am as a human being, rather than what I bought from my power person, who had a power person, and it's been going on in the family system for a long time.
Wow.
Breathing with you. And breathing's such a big key because it's the determiner of what moves in my mind. When there's something I don't want to look at, I'm in the blame game. They put me down. Notice you hold your breath, because in order to believe that, you have to hide the part of you that holds that self put down. And holding the breath locks that down. When I breathe into it, it's not going to feel very good to go, oh, here I am. I'm cooperating with this being put down. Oh, what do I believe? What did I buy into about myself? And it's time for me to, process that one out and let it go.
Yeah.
So that sounded like some relief. What's happening for you?
It's a lot of relief.
Good.
It's
sweet.
Things that part about what am I buying into? What am I believing about what that person said? That what belief is inside me that's negative, that resonates with what somebody else is saying. And I mean, I've told students before. I'm in the education system. I've told students before,
right.
If somebody says your nose is big and stripy green and purple, you would be like, yeah, no, it's not. Whatever. You're weird. You're saying something ridiculous. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
But they say, oh, you're a skank. You're a floozy. And you believe it, and you get angry, and you start yelling at them. I said, you don't, it's not true. And you need to know it's not true. And then you can hear what that person says and be like, no, yeah, whatever, you're being ridiculous. But I didn't realize that it was when I was telling them that, I was explaining, and they would tear up and they would start to, because they kind of understood. But what I didn't realize is that it was their own negative belief inside, that part of them was thinking that about themselves.
Right. There's a great line in a book by Richard Bach that says we teach best that which we most need to learn.
Yeah.
So you've successfully opened that file in your mind on all those messages about yourself that aren't true. And that's an awesome place to be. Touching into some of the old unresolved emotional patterns with it isn't Dr. Feelgood, but if you consciously, purposely keep bringing love in, you consciously, purposely keep breathing, you'll just process through layer after layer after layer of that and be finished with it. So if you did a worksheet on this reviewer, probably the first goal, there are probably many worksheets that you could do on that reviewer. But the first goal would probably be something like, well, what I want from them is for them to affirm me and approve of me. And if you go back, that's probably the perennial goal of your life. So now there's a whole row of dominoes to be cleaned up, and that will be canceling your need for this reviewer to affirm and approve of you, canceling the earlier one that you mentioned to approve, cancel your need for that second husband, that first husband, that mother, that father, and maybe even one or two where you do that same worksheet on the person that you look at when you look in the mirror.
Right. And, there was the desire to help. When I was talking for my brother, it was just a desire to be helpful. It wasn't that I wanted to be hurt. So I started, when I would get yelled at, then it was like, oh, well, you shouldn't help. You're being bad when you're trying to help. Or that
and
was,
that
I'm
is
thinking
probably
that's the message I took away.
Right. And that's probably one of the family messages. Well, that's part of the good old family feeling.
Yeah.
And so I'd support you being really clear. In fact, a good mind shifter here would be, are you familiar with the mind shifter tool that we use?
Yeah. Yeah. What would be a
Okay,
good
so you
mind
split the page. You write this on the left, and then everything comes up in response to it on the right. So the truth is that I, Laura, have always been there in goodwill to help.
Yeah.
Good breath. That's the kind that heals. And it's time for me to let go of people's errant interpretation of my intentions. Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
And if you look back, you could very likely think of times when you listened to Dad or you listened to Mom tell their story about how they were misinterpreted and how, the boss never understood them, or Mom never understood Dad, or Dad never understood me or my dad. Or, you probably heard the story 1,000 times because things like that tend to become a family system theme until somebody, in this case, you, the early adopter, says, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to look this square in the eye. I'm going to stare it down. I'm going to open up the widest parts of my unconscious, and I'm going to let loose of this.
Yeah.
I would suggest with this deep an issue that you set aside a time when you've got at least 4 hours on your own. Your phone is off, the TV's off, the radio's off. Maybe there's some soft music playing in the background. And you just sit and write that mind shifter for 4 hours. Split the page in two, put that mind shifter on the left, and every thought that comes up, and let yourself get into breathing into deeper and deeper and deeper states. You may find yourself even going back and having genetic memory surface.
Yeah.
And then once you complete that process, then in a conscious, aware state, you go back to that, what you've written over that 4 hours, and you start looking at exactly where are the worksheets, what are the goals that I need to be canceling here. Now, I've got you. Do you get text on this phone?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I'm going to send you 2 texts when we complete. One is going to be a presentation from Father's Day, where we talk about the mindset that's required in order to have a sane mind, especially if you came out of a relationship with a father that was degrading or abusive. Father and mother, actually both. So I'm going to send you that, and then I'm going to send you a link to a piece of work that was done. We just completed a few weeks ago a Codependence to Independence Communication Practicum Intensive online. And there was a woman who agreed or was working around actually she was going to the hospital because of some heart issues. And what we invited her to do in the intensive was to do some writing and asking ancestors about the condition of their hearts. And she actually did, she shared that in the intensive, and then she called into a radio show. I'm going to send you a link to that section of the radio show. It's about a 25-minute piece that she does, where she touched into her grandfather, who, if I remember correctly, immigrated from Lithuania from deep, dire, horrific poverty, thinking that he was coming to a country with the streets paved of gold, and how they ended up literally digging a hole in the ground to live in. It's a cave. and the trauma of not having enough food and not knowing how to feed his family, and if the crops were going to fail, if they'd starve, and his rage and his abuse toward his wife and his children as a result of that, and just opened a huge. I mean, she ended up in a dialogue with him, literal dialogue. It was so powerful for her to be able to get to look at what was going on with her heart physically. And I think those things will be able to assist you. And then I would suggest that you consider going to the website, to whyagain.org. And if you look down the worksheet list, you'll see a link that says responsibility communication. And there's a letter there. There's actually a set of responsibility communication rules, and a letter, actually a couple letters of people who've utilized the responsibility communication tool to open a space of healing. And I think that will take everything to the next level for you.
Okay.
So I'll send you those two links.
Much.
And, well, I am just delighted that you're ready to lay this burden down. It sounds like it's been going on long enough, and time to move into a new phase of your life. That's awesome.
Well, and I actually get to go to a different school with a different evaluator, and I most desperately don't want to create that same situation again. And the new evaluator is a very kind, loving woman.
So you're hoping to get to recreate that situation then?
I want to create a positive situation. I hope not to recreate the negative that I'm
I
coming
thought I
from.
heard you say you wanted to recreate that same situation again with this new evaluator.
No, I want to create a positive, interactive, collaborative.
There you go. So notice you've gotten clear on where you want to go, but when you were clear on where you didn't want to go, guess where you end up? Where you don't want to go.
Okay.
You lose yourself and go, okay. So now there's a part of me about, man, I never want to go there again. And that energy needs to be breathed through, brought to the surface, and forgiven, and then replaced with, and here's where I want to go. And your language was awesome on where you're clear you want to go once you become aware of it. But in each and every case, you've got to become consciously aware of it, because if we just let the unconscious take over, we'll slide right back into the old pattern. It'll just keep happening.
Right. And I have heard Dr. Tim say this before, and I've heard it in the archive messages also, and I'm acting like it's the first time I heard it, but yeah.
Okay. So is there a thought disorder that goes along with that you're on the verge of?
Oh.
Like, why don't I ever get it? Kind of thought?
Well.
So notice that's another power person message. And you can let go of it and be gentle with yourself and recognize that, we have to build the brain cells. Here's my offering. In watching people over the last 50 years of developing this work, my take is that it takes, with people who have dedication and actually work the tools, it takes 5 to 10 years to really comprehend what we're talking about and where we're going with this. To make such a shift in mind. When you think of how massive the multi-generational database is that's in our mind from the generations, I mean, it's beyond fathomable. When you start realizing that in your bloodline and mine, in just 30 generations of people, of ancestors, there are 1.6 billion people. And we have stored in our genes the patterns of every one of those lives. And those patterns tend to run us. And the process of getting conscious and undoing those patterns takes time. You don't just hear something once and go, oh, yeah, well, I'll just throw out all that 1.6 billion lives, memories of those lives, and I'll just do this. You can't do it. It can't be done. Now, of course, when we realize it's possible, everybody wants to do it yesterday. Yeshua said you can't storm the gates of the kingdom. You can't just say, oh, okay, I got it, I'm done. It's a process. There's work to be done. You need to go in and undo those old patterns. There was a great psychologist that wrote a poem about this that's so profound and so right on target. He said, as you travel through life, no matter what your goal, keep your eye upon the donut and not upon the hole. And the mind is going to tend, the multi-generational database mind is going to tend to keep bringing us back to the old pattern. And when I keep my eye on the goal, where I really want to go on the donut, then I keep upgrading my carbon-based memories mind. And I get to the point where I've so restructured it that it supports me in truth and where I really want to live. And that's the whole objective of this work. And it's not an overnight process.
Yeah.
So be gentle with yourself on the way there. Keep engaged and just keep moving the layers. And it comes in layers. And some of the layers aren't very nice when they come up. But it's necessary to do it. When they asked Yeshua, in essence, the question in this particular passage was, how do we keep God happy? How do we please God? And Yeshua tells them, he gives them an Aramaic idiom. And the idiom basically says, you're going to have to incorporate, understand, and live everything that I'm teaching you. Half of his audience, as a result of that question and that answer, said, too hard a saying. And they turned and they left, and they never came back. And the average person says, too hard a saying, I don't want to do that much work. It's like, but when you realize that's where your whole life comes from, what else is there to do? And, however long it takes, doesn't matter. There's work to be done. And know that there's support here to support you doing it.
Yes, and thank you so much for having the materials available and free on whyagain.org and doing the radio blog or radio show for so often and so many years that you have done it, and keeping the archives so nicely organized also. And thank you, Jeannie, for helping with everything.
That's Jeannie you got to thank for that one. I wouldn't have a clue how to touch any of that. She's the genius behind that whole thing, and the website and the app. Have you got the Forgiveness app on your phone?
Yes, I do. And Good. Well, I did. But I got a new phone. I got one of these iPhone things. Oh.
Okay. Well, there's actually a new version of it that she just completed about 2 weeks ago. Put in, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours to redo it. So if you just go to your app store and type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, the newest version is there, and put it to work.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and I'll open the space for anyone else that needs to talk or wants to comment.
Well, thank you for your willingness, your openness. I suspect that you've probably hit a home run for virtually everybody that will ever listen to this particular show and those that are on it now. So much appreciation.
Thank you.
All right, Laura, take care. Blessings. Holding your space. All right. Powerful process. Thank you. So, Miss Jeannie, everything's quiet, so let's go to the book. We're going into a new chapter in Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And it's chapter 15 on transitions. For those who are not aware of it, we are reading from the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Usually, unless there's a hand up at the beginning of the show, at the beginning of each show, and through the period of the year, we're going to cover the whole book. And we're just about on track with reading a couple of paragraphs a day. We're about halfway through the year, and we're halfway through the book. So we're on page, if you're following along with us, page 89, chapter 15. If you don't have a copy of the book, it is not available for sale at this point. It's out of print. However, you can go to eBay or Amazon, and there are usually dozens of copies on each site that you can purchase fairly inexpensively, so you can follow along with us. And or you can download the book free from our website, whyagain.org. So Transitions is the title of this new chapter, and Richard starts out saying, I'm not sure what you mean when you say letting go of the parts of us that need to heal. It sounds like I might lose something in the process, Richard confided. It is frightening to most people. For some, at first, it appears to be the downside of doing this work. As you engage in this type of thinking and heal, you will lose a very dear friend, I offer to Richard. Well, how so? He looked kind of puzzled. When you engage in true forgiveness, fear, manipulation, blame, and guilt are going to evaporate from your life. You'll no longer be able to play the role of victim, which has been a part of your life for so long. That friend has got to go. Richard says, that's true, he admitted. I'm just now realizing how much of my life and identity have been tied up in guilt and fear. It does feel like a big part of me is going to disappear, he lamented. I won't know how to act anymore. Who will I be? So that's a pretty typical response to, I have this self that I think is who I am. And the truth is, it's not the self at all. I remember there's a friend of mine who was a medical doctor in Fort Lauderdale, and he had a client that had cancer. This goes back 30 years ago. And he called me into his office and asked if I'd work with this guy because he suspected that it was self-induced. He was doing it to himself. So we did a fair bit of work, and this fellow had been a businessman, pretty tough guy, and had lived his life with a lot of rage. And we got down to the point where he could see energetically. He started to understand that his body was not a body, but was an energy system, and that diseases were a result of holding on to energies that really didn't belong in the system, dis-ease. And he got to the point where he could see how, at least for himself, this was his feedback to me, he had created his own cancer. And then he said, but that's who I am. And if I let go of that, I won't be me anymore. And he would not do the work. He just wouldn't do it. And about 6 months later, he was dead. He came face to face with knowing he was doing this to himself. But he was so hooked into, but that's who I am. And the reason I bring that up is because when you realize, if you've got that identity, and that's an identity that's really, gotten you somewhere in your life or gotten you attention or whatever it is you've used it for, there's such a deeply powerful, sweet, awesome replacement for that self that one's worth giving up in a heartbeat. That hostility and fear-based self, the identity of being victim, to really, if it's gotten you brownie points, if it's gotten you attention, that's nice. It's kind of like, there's, in psychology, they talk about the soggy cereal principle. And that is that the child, the average adult, if you give them a bowl of soggy cereal, they're not going to touch it. It's like, ew. But the child's hungry, they're going to eat the soggy cereal. And people who don't know any better than to identify with that false fear and hostility-based self will chew on that and chew on that and chew on that like it's their very lifeblood. When waiting in the wings for every person, and I'm talking about every one of us, and I don't care who we refer to, I don't care if you're talking about Mussolini or Hitler or any of them, every one of us started out with one simple truth. We are made of the energy called love. That's just the way it is. And when we open the space to let that come in, it will flush out the hostility and fear-based self that really, truly doesn't even exist except as a false image in the mind. It's all false. That whole hostility and fear-based game is it seems so powerfully present in people's lives and so persistent and so there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that, well, how could that be false? If you're holding on to mind energy that's based in something other than love, then you get to make up a whole false world of rage and guilt and grief and blame and trauma and drama and fight and struggle, or you can give it up. Now, at first, it's going to seem like, well, but this old friend is gone. Yeah. Well, that's the kind of friends you don't need. And as you allow the truth about yourself to come literally to enter into your physiology. Just last week, we were doing a still point breathing session with Jeannie. And there was a particular piece of music that we've been listening to that really aroused some sadness in it for her. Jeannie, would you like to share a little bit about what happened when that opened up for you?
You'll have to mute. Okay. Yeah, it was a song called "Carry Me," and it starts out and talks about a tear that drops into the ocean, and it can't swim in these waters. Please carry me. And it was just this real heavy sadness every time I heard it, and I couldn't pinpoint what it was about or anything. And then we did a breath session, and the whole time I was doing the breath session, then we were playing that song. We had it on repeat, so it would just keep playing over and over and over. And what I got, a couple of things. First thing that came up was a sadness about my son and what if I lost him. And so that was just, I guess, an underlying deep thought, and that I wouldn't be able to survive. And then I got it that said again. You lost his twin. Oh yeah, and I had lost his twin. I was pregnant with twins, and at the 4th month, I lost the little girl, and then so Ryan is my survivor, and he's my only birth child, and so it was just a horrible feeling of losing him, and then thinking of the words of the song, that I was the teardrop and that I was dropped into this ocean of this world and a separation from God. There's another part of the song where it says, lead me through this turmoil with your mercy and take me back home. And so it's like, wanting to be reconnected to God again, reconnected to love. And then it said, and give me peace. And so it was just, I went through all of that. It was just, and then I got to the end of it and felt just peaceful. And so now I can listen to the song. Say what?
Share the still point you had.
Oh, and so now I can listen to the song, and it's a beautiful song, and just be with it, and that I don't get that sadness. It's such a shift. But another thing, towards the end of the breath session, it was like I was looking from outside myself into myself, and it was like empty. And then I came out of the still point. It felt like a body slam, like somebody had just slammed into me and my whole body, and it just brought me back out of it with a gasp. And then the last few minutes of the still point, I was kind of half in, half out, and just feeling my body physically, like feeling my face and my arms and my hands. And I said, I think that it was the first time I'd really felt my body. And so I think that what I did was I finally emptied that fear and then actually incarnated back into this physiology. So it was very powerful. And I said, back several months ago, I was given the message that I would awaken in 5 measures. And I had already gone through the 5, and the 5th one was about incarnating back into your physiology. And I said, apparently I didn't fully do it that time. And so this was like the completion of it. So it's pretty powerful.
And the energy was just awesomely sweet. That energy, which is at the root of the truth of every one of us. And that's what we're heading for. So thank you for sharing that, sweetie. That was so profound to just observe. Actually, it was so powerful that I actually turned the video on my camera and videoed the last 15 minutes of her. So she's literally physically touching her face and her arms and her shoulders. And at one point, she kind of pulled her shoulders, and it's like, I feel so small. It was like she was entering her body for the first time. It's pretty powerful. Any other thoughts, sweetie? Okay. Well, then we've still got about 7 minutes left. If you're out there in listener land, we would love to hear your voice. What's on your mind? How can we support you? Is all of this making sense? If there's any part of it that isn't making sense, or any part that needs to be, filled in, expanded on, that's exactly what we're here for. So if you have a question for us or something going on that we can support you with, Laura, I really appreciate you opening that whole issue. I think that's going to be a gift for everyone to really tap into, especially as you pay attention to the energetic dynamics of, as people listen, and you can hear the point at which that breath happens. It just lets go of a whole load of that, and that's the power of the breath in the process. So, okay, let's talk to our caller.
Yeah, hi, Cecilia.
Hey, welcome, young lady.
Oh my God, so much self-hate came up after listening to me on there yesterday. On the show.
Good. So you're in process? Yeah. How cool is that?
I just want to say, though,
dubious honor, right?
What?
I say dubious.
Oh, so I'm honored. Yes, thanks. Thanks for the pain.
Yeah. Thanks for the pain.
Yeah. No, I'm saying it to me, too, because I willingly... That's the part that about the process of this work is that I don't know if I'm supposed to feel that much pain or if I'm just stuck in it, but I'm doing the worksheets and all that, and the tears and the mucus that's coming out of me is just pouring out of me, and and I kind of still processing it today. I know it's not a one-time deal. Somehow I understand that, but I guess my question is that kind of supposed to come up, all that the tears? Because I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm breathing when I'm crying. I can't not breathe when I cry. Sometimes I wonder, though, if I'm blocking it. So there, I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, oftentimes people use crying, and, if you think about the little kid crying, what do they look like? And they're using it to shut their breath down. If you can breathe and cry at the same time, great. But if it's a choice of one or the other, breathe. There's another powerful piece of music out there that you might want to check in with. And obviously somebody has done a significant amount of work to be able to sing this song. And it's Carly Simon, and she sings about, I haven't got time for the pain. And one of the lines in that song says, And it's speaking to Ruka, basically, as I hear it. It says, you showed me how to fill my heart with love, how to bring in all that white light coming down from the heavens. That's always there for all of us, but not if we're stuck looking down into the carbon-based memory in the past. In the Aramaic language, the word repent isn't some kind of put down, repent, you sinner. The word actually means to turn another way. You put it together with the way she languages in that song, and most of us are locked into looking at the perceptual constructs from the past and carbon-based memory, the generational pain. But then when we repent, when we literally, it's like, make a 180-degree shift and turn our attention another way and open the space for that white light to come down from the heavens. It just floods and flushes and cleans everything out. And, you can't be rid of it if you're not willing to clean it out. Jeannie uses the example oftentimes of, we have this garbage can and I really don't want to deal with what's in it. I don't want to smell it. So I have this air freshener. I go by 2 or 3 times a day and I spray air freshener on it. So everything seems to be fine. But sooner or later, you got to empty the garbage can.
Well,
and
when
in
I emptied it, it smelled so bad I cried.
I got it. And the mucus, mucus has 2 purposes in the body. One is it's a thin, watery lubricant. But where there's toxicity, mucus thickens to trap the toxicity and keep it out of the cell. If we've gone through year after year, decade after decade of trauma and toxicity, then there are thin layers. And when mucus dries out, you blow your nose in a Kleenex, and you got a full Kleenex, and if you come back the next day, it's shrunk down to almost nothing. It's dehydrated. Well, that happens inside the body. And as it dehydrates, as that mucus thickens and dehydrates, it creates layer upon layer upon layer, especially in the colon. I mean, we've had people where they've measured a colon 11 inches in diameter, weighing 65 pounds. And that's basically hardened mucus. When you open the space and you bring in the vitality to start to process that, it reliquefies. It's really important to drink, to keep hydrated, so that mucus that's rehydrating, and depending where it is in the body, those parts of the body can literally physically look like they're blowing up. Like, what happened here? As the mucus reliquefies and the body, if the lymphatic system, if the microcirculation is working properly, then the lymphatic system takes that waste out of the structure and through the eliminative channel. So, it's all part of the process, and stay in willingness and go for it.
What actors and actresses do when they have to get
It's right on track.
Okay, I'll do that. And that song I listened to over and over again, and I cried a million tears when I was 13, 14, and 15.
Well, it might help to open, the next time you're ready to breathe, it might help to listen to it and let it open the next layer.
Okay.
Sweet. All right,
Thank
we're
you.
down to the last minute, so I'm going to say thank you and honoring the work you do and holding the space for you, young lady. Be blessed.
Same to you. Bye.
All right, everybody. Have the best year yet of your eternal lives. Blessings.